Well, hi, folks. This is Jim Peacock with another Peak Careers interview. Today, we're going to talk about how can we help people reshuffle their work so that they have a better work-life balance. Obviously, this is a huge issue that's that we're all facing these days as career coaches. And I have Anush Hansen today with us, and she is actually the owner of Balance Card Sort. So we're going to talk a little bit about her card sorts and how they work and some of the benefits. And then I also invited Laurie Stickels, who is from Harvard University, in because she's loves these cards like I do as well. So we're going to look at how do the balance card sorts help people navigate sort of this question of what is this, how do I reshuffle, how do I rebalance, and so what are some of the benefits of an actual card sort, and then we're going to hear some success stories as well. So Anush, I met Anush. She took my facilitating career development class. That's when we first met. And she's the owner of Kennebec Career and Wellness. And she began that after my class, I believe you started it. Yep. And and then she's like, whoo, she created these balanced card sorts, which I was like amazed. And then because she had so much free time, she also developed the Career Counseling Connection online directory. And I don't know what she's going to do next, maybe build a pyramid or something, but who knows? But she has done some great things. All of these things are just wonderful additions to our field. So we're anxious to talk today about the card sort balance. And Laurie Stickels, I met through Career Counseling Consortium. And what's your position there? Are you still an officer?
Yes, I am. I'm on the board.
On the board. Mm-hmm. So we met her, but I met her there, and she's a career specialist at Harvard University. So I want to dive in here today and play around here with what's going on with card sorts. So as people are reshuffling, Anush, we'll start with you. How do the balanced card sorts really help people figure out this reshuffle, this rebalance in their heads?
Yeah, so, part of the reason why I wanted to create a work-life balance card sort was to help people get more clear and actually be able to visualize how to reshuffle their priorities and what they need more of, what they already have, how they can prioritize those and take like real action toward building those priorities into their life or into their career. We talked a little bit about other card sorts out there, and I have to give credit to the Nodal Career Values card sort. Jim introduced me to Nodal during the FCD course. We did the sort, and I was hooked immediately. Love just qualitative information. And just doing that sort myself was really validating because I was in the middle of switching careers from a research career to going back to counseling. And so anyway, Nodal Values Cards has one value called work-life balance. And as I was talking to different clients who would come, sort of really overwhelmed and burnt out and trying to figure out how to create the kind of life and the kind of career they wanted, I do this values card sort, and work-life balance would always rise to the top, like for pretty much every single client that I spoke with. When I asked them, well, what is work-life balance to you? Like, what does that mean? How would you know you have work-life balance? What do you need more of in your life for work-life balance? What do you already have? I kept asking the same line of questioning, but everyone would give different answers because everyone's circumstances are different. Everyone has different roles and responsibilities. So the reason why I created the cards was to help people tease out, like specifically, like get really, really, really specific about what they could change, rather than coming in and being like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. Where would I even start? Like, how could I possibly move toward better balance and wellness and health and fulfillment? This kind of gives them words and items and topics that they can literally shuffle around. So they are reshuffling and seeing it all out in front of them. So I think that is the power of card sorts in general, Just, giving people some concrete words and movement and organization around things they're probably already thinking about, but sometimes they're just so overwhelming, especially when people are like, working like crazy and managing their families and their other responsibilities. It's hard to take the time to sit down and really think, okay, well, what could I actually start changing in some small way to make room for myself and my balance and my wellness and all those things. So.
Yeah. Laurie, you have some thoughts on that as well, from your perspective?
Yeah, I do. Thanks. I really am so grateful that I came across this card sort at the ideal time. Last summer, I was designing a new program for emerging leaders, high potential admin staff at Harvard. And traditionally, I have used a values assessment, the Fabulous Career Anchors by Dr. Edgar Schein. I was looking at an assessment that would get far into this notion of having work and life priorities because of everyone's life being turned upside down during the pandemic and so many people trying to grasp what's really important to me. And so what I love about the card sort is there's two different streams of thinking. There's the career priorities, and then there's the personal priorities. And looking at where the intersection of those two results occurs, what's really been helpful for the people in my program. So you can kind of look at, well, these are my career priorities, and equally as important, particularly now, these are my personal priorities. Where are things congruent, coming together, and where are things really divergent? And that's what's been helpful in working with my group. And what they do is they talk with each other about it in breakout rooms, which has been really powerful to recognize what people have in common around these different priorities and what's different about their priorities.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that, it for years work was 8 to 5, and then your other life was at another time. And now, you developed this before the pandemic, right? The cards.
Yeah, well, I had thought about developing it before the pandemic. So I took your course and opened my practice about a year and a half before things shut down. So I had some things sketched out, but I didn't really have the space to get into it. And then COVID shut everything down and my clients dropped significantly, and I was home with my 6-year-old. And so I had some time.
Yeah.
And, I didn't plan it because of the pandemic, but
it was emerging, and I think, for me, I think things were already, this whole work-life balance thing was already happening before COVID. I think, right? I mean, and I just think a lot of things just got amplified when the pandemic hit. But what I love is, this worksheet, I don't know, this is an earlier one. I don't know how much you've changed, but I mean, you've got your personal, you've got your career goals, but a person can begin to say, people don't separate the 8 to 5 job in their personal life as much as they used to. And I think this really is helpful because you do have personal priorities. What's important to me? And then work priorities. What's important to me? And then this worksheet allows you to sort of begin to sort of make them match, right? I mean, you can begin to, sort through some of that stuff, as you both said, and I think that's the beauty of this work-life balance is they're not two separate things,
And one of my favorite question on the whole, there's the sorting of the cards, but then there's these 15 questions to help process the top priorities and set a goal. But my favorite question is the first one, which is, they've identified their very top 3 personal, their top 3 career. And then that first question is like, what are the themes and connections and commonalities across those? And they're almost always are some real obvious themes. I had a client last week who went through this, a new client, And she said, these are all about freedom. And like, it was just such a bump moment based on the type of work that she was in, which was very, I mean, she was worked in a tax accountant office and was getting into tax season and was just completely, you know, on the brink, just very burnt out. And she ended up leaving actually, but she saw these priorities and identified like freedom is what I need for, you know, my soul. And what's also cool is, you know, when one or two of these priorities are taken care of, a lot of others often fall into place because you make space and you kind of free up what you need in order to let these other priorities move into your life or your career.
Yeah.
So it's connected, like you said, like it's not siloed. We can't treat them as separate, our separate lives, our career and our personal life.
You know, and this woman was thinking about freedom at some level, you know, and the cards, you know, gave her the language, and kind of a visual, right? And which kind of leads me to the next question. And I've so many things I want to say, but I want to make sure I want to get through our questions and then make sure I get my points out too. But I love card sorts, and you all know that. But Laurie, what do you think are the benefits of doing an actual card sort versus just talk? I mean, you could just talk about this stuff, but what do you think? And it's a little related to what we were starting to talk about in the first question, but
I think what happens is people can really go into their head and think about their responses in a way that doesn't happen when you're having conversation with them. You know, there's that expected response time. I need to say something about this. I've been using the card sort virtually. So because I've been in a virtual world, but even then people can take as much time as they want to think about, what does the statement mean to me? And these are really personal statements, I find, and particularly the ones about personal priorities. Even though this is really looking at balance, work life, it's talking about the individual, because they say, you know, my diet, you know, my needs, and it's just a very personal question. And I think doing a card sort, somebody doesn't have to answer right away. In fact, they don't have to answer at all. They're letting the card or their sort, their choice, answer for them. So I think that works really well, getting at the essence of some of these questions. And even the career priorities, I think there's a lot of shoulds behind how people answer these questions. Well, I really should say this is one of my top. The reality is, if you don't feel that way or think that way, you don't have to answer to anybody. You just let the sort do it for you. And I think that's what's really powerful about card sorts, as opposed to open-ended questions, which are terrific for the follow-through when you can do some exploration with people. But at that point, they've already kind of put their list out there. This is my list. And that's what you're working with. So that's why I think it's really great.
Anush, some other thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I'm going to carry on what Laurie was saying. And part of when I was designing these, I was struggling with how to phrase the cards, one, to make it all work and to make sense, but I really wanted those top categories. So I want more of this in my career or personal life. I already have enough of this. I don't need this. The I want more of this, that's such a, like, they're taking ownership of wanting this in their life. It's not like a very important, somewhat important, not at all important. It's like very actionable. Like, I want this priority to be more, you know, evident in my life. And so I think, like Laurie was saying, these are ideas that they probably already have, but the cards lay it all out for them and give them language and sort of does that part of the work for them. And then they get to interpret it however they want. So these cards are each individual card. There's the 30 personal and the 30 career priorities cards. each card is both specific and vague in a way. So it's specific in that it's getting into sort of the detail of different domains of wellness that, you know, cut across both career and personal life. But the person gets to interpret it however they want in whatever way makes sense for their life. So there's face validity there. There's no hidden algorithms in the background coming up with a score for them, which has value too. Like I use all kinds of assessments, mostly card sorts, but you know, I think there's room for all kinds of different assessments to help someone figure out how they want to shape their career and their life. But with the card sort, with any card sort, it means what it means. There's no right or wrong answer. I think card sorts are also amazing for people who have a really hard time talking about themselves, and you know, this working with a coach or a counselor might be the first time they've ever like carved out time to talk about what they need or who they are or what they want. And also for people who aren't used to asking for what they want, because it's like forcing them, like Laurie said, to sort these cards. And what is revealed is, you know, what's important to them. So I mean, I have Jim to thank for literally like creating these cards too, because I mean, I'm a qualitative researcher for almost 20 years. I didn't know about card sorts until I took the FCD class.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, what is this? This is amazing. And now I'm like, yeah, I'm hooked.
You know, a friend of mine, he turned me on to card sorts 30 years ago. It was
oh wow,
Missouri career card sorts, and I still use those occasionally. I use them in my Holland interest seminar. But yeah, so I mean, it's just like, wow, this is a great idea. You know, there's this sort of tactile feel to a card, right? And then there's this processing, you know, that's what I do, the workshops, I call it the magic of card sorts, you know, where you begin to, you process at a different level, right? Than you do. And I think as Laurie said, you know, it sort of slows people down, right? And then it gives people a language. I think, let's just take a moment. I do have the actual physical card sorts. You have it online, and I think you use more online, but let me just give an example, and maybe we should have started with this, but I mean, here's an example of the ability to be assertive and speak up for myself in my personal life. Again, kind of like it's what Laurie said, it's very, very personal, but then I have to choose, I want more of this, or I already have or have enough of this. I don't want this. It just doesn't, right? It's all very personal. And so this is sort of, so you go through with doesn't matter what order, I don't think, if you go through the personal side or the work side, but that's an example of the personal, the ability to be assertive and speak up for myself in personal life. And then the card sorts, they have the back side. This is a calm and aesthetically pleasing work environment. So there's a work question. And then it's all so personal, and it gives people, like you said, I think, Anush, it's the giving people language. So many times people will say, well, what's important to you? I want to make a lot of money, you know, or whatever, you know, and it often isn't a lot of money, but that's what they'll say. The cards give people that language. And I think that's so important.
And I think particularly now, when you ask that question, what do you want out of work? It's a very confusing time because people just don't know. Even the question about, do you want to be remote? Do you want to be in person? Everyone's got a different sense of that every day, it seems like. So I do think some of the key words here that are part of the card sort, like clear, you know, adequate, those kind of qualifying words are helpful for people now as they're thinking through their career and also their personal needs.
Yeah, when I talk to clients, when I'm starting with them, and I still use career values and motivated skills with every client, as well as the work-life balance assessment. So I'll start with the work-life balance assessment for sort of like the holistic kind of big picture and narrowing down to a very specific goal. But then I still go through the career values, and then I go through the motivated skills, and I frame it as, we are collecting data about you. It's qualitative data. It's helping you tell your story and maybe rewrite your story. But this is all your baseline data that we need to keep coming back to once we start exploring different careers or exploring different changes that you might make in your life in order to have what you want. You have to keep coming back to what you've identified as a deal breaker or non-negotiable for you. And so then you're like making this informed decision on the various paths you might explore. You're always coming back to what they've identified as their priorities, their values, their skills. And that's there's still the serendipity piece of it, Jim, and the considering different paths. Like there might not just be one path, but whatever path they choose to explore needs to be aligned with what they've identified if they want to find that fulfillment that they usually come to us for help with.
But so many people think that this career decision is like a ladder, right? It's here's a process, and the reality is, what I love about card sorts is it kind of throws it out the window, because I can actually change my answer. Next week, I might actually sort these in a slightly different way, right? And a year from now, I might actually sort them in a slightly different way. It's really a process. And I love the fact that you said, you got to keep coming back to this, because I start with the skills card sort all the time. And we move on, and I'm like, well, what did you say back when we did that? And some people are like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, you need to know, you need to remember. All of those things are important as you think through. And so that's I like to have people do career journals, so that they're writing some of these thoughts down as they're going forward.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing about work-life balance in general. Like it's not an end point, right? You don't get to work-life balance and then you're done. It's a constant lifelong practice where things are thrown at you, or just your life circumstances change on purpose, like for a positive reason, not always like a negative, unexpected thing. And then you have to reshuffle and like literally reshuffle and reprioritize based on what's going on in your life at that moment.
Well, I mean, even your questions, like you said, when you're looking at your top values, what are the themes? Then you go talk about priorities. What's a specific priority for you? What's a priority what's important to you? Then those are vague in some ways, but they're forcing people to say, these are my top 3 personal, these are my top 3 careers. Those other ones are important, but these are my top 3. So you focus on that.
You have to start somewhere, right?
And I love it. What's one thing you can adjust in your life or start letting go of, right? And you're really kind of mining down into what's one small change? What's one thing that you can do? And that's what people need to do to get off ground zero so often, right?
Yeah. And what's getting in the way, I think, can be a really powerful question, because, what's getting in the way could be a commitment or a responsibility, but it could also be self-doubt. It could be imposter syndrome. It could be a behavior. It could be a belief you have about yourself or about something else, someone else. So it does force the user to get super, super, super specific, because that's the only way to make real, lasting, sustainable change, is to start small and those SMART goals, like specific, measurable, timely, all that good stuff is wrapped in there.
So let's look at some maybe you can give some specific success stories or case studies of somebody that's done these and sort of found some success. And then Anush, maybe we'll start with you, and then Laurie can throw in another example here. But
yeah, so I have I've used this card sort with all of my clients for the last year, and I think the biggest success, just generally speaking, is seeing a client who comes in a sort of very stuck, feeling hopeless, like nothing's going to change. This is how I'm going to feel forever, like this totally burnt out anxious, overwhelmed. There's no way out of this. With this card sort, because of all the reasons we've talked about, like just, you know, getting really specific and clear and having the tactile nature and the visual of all these things that are important to them. When you watch a client move through that and have like a little spark of hope sneak in, like, oh, wow, like here's something I could actually change. And I've got confidence that I can change this. And moving from that place of really like despair and stuckness and hopelessness to that spark of hope is just, I mean, it's the whole reason why this job is so awesome, right? Like seeing people go through that shift is amazing.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, I'd say that that is the biggest success. You know, I have a client who is, she's a physician. She's working crazy hours. I mean, physicians right now are being asked, so much is being asked of them, like in COVID, but before COVID too, like just the way the healthcare system is set up, seeing 20, 21 patients a day, bringing all her notes home with her. She has a 2-year-old at home. She now had, actually just saw her this morning, she now has a 3-week-old as well at home. And we did the card sort together, and she has been sort of identifying like and shuffling around as things have been changing, as she found out she was pregnant with her second daughter. Her personal priorities are carrying a lot more weight right now than her career priorities. And she's recognizing that her career is taking away from all of these personal priorities that are very important, like these 2 very small children. And she's been working through, and this is nothing she didn't know already. It's just that
Right.
she had no time or space to think about any of this, let alone, you know, go for a 10-minute walk. There was just, she'd go, she'd see her 21 patients a day, she'd come home, she'd be dealing with a toddler. There's just no room for her. And so we, first of all, slowly figured out how to work in a way for her to get some outdoor walks in, because that was identified as really, really important to her. Like she talked about feeling really disconnected from herself, not having any spare brain space to just focus on her, which is so common among, you know, especially new parents, especially people in the helping professionals, but just to see like, I'm not getting any of these things that I need for myself to be a really phenomenal physician and the kind of mother that I want to be.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I mean, she's considering leaving the profession as a whole, and
Wow.
and she's and that's very hard for her, because when you go to med school, I mean, that's a lot of work, right? To go to med school, I'm a physician. But she's realizing that her priorities now are much different than when she was in her 20s.
Yeah.
She might want to just focus on her family now. She's still working it out because she just had another baby. So things are changing. She's probably going to reshuffle those cards. But yeah, I mean, that's one example. But everyone's different, you know, but you still get this like agency over these things that you want.
Yeah.
And it's like it's written down, like there's no denying it, like there it is right in front of me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Laurie, how are you? I know Anush says you're using these quite a bit, and you, as you said too, but what's an example of you using this as in your work?
Yeah, so I also work with folks who are in transition, who are looking for a new position as a result of their position at the university ending. And we have a really wonderful program to support some of our staff in this regard. And sometimes I think when you're using any kind of assessment and you've experienced job loss, things are even more heightened for people. Sometimes you can get a real flat result back from an assessment because people just aren't really able to engage. And sometimes you get what I call overinflated which is what I had with this client, which is their career priorities cards were full up, the whole report, and their personal priorities were full up. So you've got all of these choices that they're saying, I want more of these. And that's, again, not uncommon, particularly when people are in transition and they see it as a fresh start. Looking at that and really helping somebody go through each of those and prioritize the 3, which is the great part of the follow-up exercise. You have to choose 3, was really crucial to help this person get to a point where there was going to be the possibility of setting goals. When you have full pages of things that all sound great, you're just not going to be able to do that. But when we looked at the top 3, and I asked this person to notice some trends, they weren't really able to see it. But when I was able to say, you have chosen for a career priority the ability to advocate for myself at work, and you have chosen for a personal priority the ability to speak, to ask for help and support when I need it. Those are 2 self-advocacy needs. And we started to do some more work around that. And that was really helpful because, of course, job search is all about self-advocacy and self-promotion. So I knew based on this card sort that was tricky for this person. We're going to have to do some more work and exploration around that. So just kind of going through that whole process, I learned a lot about this instrument, this tool, this assessment rather. I learned a lot about them, and it really gave us a place to kind of start setting some goal setting with regard to the job search in particular.
You know, and you might have been able to dig that out through a number of coaching sessions, but that could have taken a long time to dig it out, where the words forced me to say, this is more important than this. This one's more important. You know, you get to move those things around. And I think, as we said earlier, that forcing me to sort of move these. Oh, they're all important. Well, we got to pick 3. So now then you really start kind of digging in a little bit. And it doesn't mean that those other ones don't ever get addressed. All it means is that you're going to start with these. Let's just start with this. And I love that you found the self-advocacy really was kind of emerged, right? Because then it gave you something to work on and gave this person something to work on, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Wow. I love this. Well, listen, I really try to keep these to a half an hour, so I'm gonna wrap this up. But any final thoughts from either of you about the card sorts or anything before I say goodbye here?
I would just say, if people have questions about it or how they can use it with their clients or in their setting, to feel free to reach out directly to me via email, anush@kennebunkcounseling.com, or to check things out at balancedcardsorts.com. It's available as the hard copy deck like Jim showed, and then it's also available as a drag and drop online assessment that people can use remotely.
It works really well. That works really well. That's what we've been using, is the online.
Yeah, I mean, I developed this during COVID when we were all forced to go remote. So I was like, I better get an online version created.
And I will say, the online version, you've done a great job at keeping it simple, keeping it clean, easy to use. So it is great.
Thank you. Awesome.
So we'll have your website will also be in the notes. So feel free to click on that and check them out. So I'm Jim Peacock with Peak Careers Consulting, and I really started my business with identifying that lots of people do career services, but they oftentimes don't have any formal training for it. And so they really need more that training. And so I really started with the Facilitating Career Development class, which I started in 2001. And then I developed some of these online discussion-based seminars. So that's with a cohort of people. It's kind of, if you think about a mini college class, it's a 5-week long course with a cohort of people where you're learning from each other on a whole variety of different topics. Also written a field guide for career practitioners. But if you are interested, if you are a career practitioner or someone who delivers career services, you might want to sign up for my weekly career email, and you'll get the top 10 tips for working with an undecided person. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest, and all these other ones. I'm more on LinkedIn than any of those, but you will find me as Peak Careers on all of those platforms. Well, thank you both so much for joining me today. I knew I wanted to talk with Anush about these cards, and I was really excited to hear that Laurie's been using them quite a bit. So thank you both very much for participating
Thank
today.
you, Jim. So fun.
And thank you, Laurie, for
Welcome. Of course.
this.